On this episode of The Trident, we're talking about, do you want casual sex or do you want an LTR?
Yo, brother.
Yo. Man, that
How the hell you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Hey, is that your son on the track?
Oh, yeah. That's my son. That is, in fact, that track's titled Introducing RP Thor.
That is a dope track. Did he do all of it? Did you play all the instruments?
Every instrument, yep. He's a very talented musician, that's for sure.
I love his double kick when it comes to the bass on the drums, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's smooth.
He's a very good musician. And where he really shines is on the guitar, you know.
I have heard him play the guitar.
He's very good. I sent him to MI Hollywood for shred and guitar, and that's where he was trained.
Dude,
he's definitely a master and a full journeyman at music for sure.
Hell yeah. I mean, he's been touring and doing the thing, man. He's been living the dream.
Yeah, man. Would you forget your cut in the bike?
What are you talking about?
There you go. I just want to see your guns. Yeah, okay.
What are you talking about? This thing. Oh, so I got a new chair today, right?
Yeah.
I got the same chair delivered that our fellow soldier, our VP has.
Oh, good.
He turned me on to it, and this chair is like fucking amazing. It's like the best thing since sliced bread. I love it. So I put that together today, and it's all nice. I put my cut right back over where it belongs on the chair.
That's where I keep mine too.
It kind of drapes it like a throne, you know, like the royal fabric over the throne. That's what my cut's like.
Yeah. That's where I keep my cut too, but I'm thinking I need a wolf skin back there, you know?
I think you need a wolf skin from a wolf that you killed yourself with your bare hands. So. Like I couldn't let you get away with, you know, just buying some wolf skin that you haven't earned.
All right.
You know?
All right. No synthetic from China?
Nah. That's not gonna work for a guy named Thor.
Right. Don't make me put my buffalo hat on, man.
So what are we talking about today? What is going to be the topic? Because you brought up some good points earlier.
Okay. So today let's talk about something pretty controversial, pretty wild. You know, had some experience in life, and I asked a crew of mine because they were so excited. They've been watching podcasts, particularly RP podcasts, where they have a lot of girls on, younger women to say, you know, maybe mid 20s to late 30s, that essentially, you know, they talk about certain questions like, you know, why body count matters and to men. And of course, the women being women, and you can't fault any of them for this. And a lot of guys don't realize this, if the women really can only view any conversation about anything around behaviors and even politics without viewing it through a solipsistic lens of their own emotional experience. So when you bring up something in general, they can only understand it in how they have operated either under similar circumstances or themselves as a woman must have an innate understanding of it. They can't, it's very unlike most women, unless they're conditioned to it, to be able to kind of step back and be that third party observer and look at the facts and look at it rationally. It's very emotional. So when you see some of these podcasts where they have a lot of, say, Miami women, and they get upset because these guys are calling them out, and the fact that high value men don't want their high body counts, they don't want them to behave like 304s, and they get upset by it. And in some cases, they stomp out, of the room, having been called on their BS. Right?
Are you talking about any girls on a specific show that we may all know very well?
Love that show, but it's not just that show. I mean, there's several shows that do that. And you can see examples. I mean, we'll just call it like it is. You can see it on Pearly Things, Fresh Fit. You can see it on whatever with Ryan Atlas, all good stuff.
Yeah.
And so this crew I'm talking about were laughing, and they just love it, man. The red meat is putting these hoes down. And it's like, I'm listening to these guys, and I know these guys, and it's like, guys, so that's what you guys like. And I asked the question, so you're in your own social environment, and do you guys feel strongly enough in your egos that you would behave as such? Oh yeah, now that I'm RP, that's exactly what I do. I'd put these hoes down. I'm only looking for the 8s, 9s, and 10s that are wholesome girls. That's all I would want. And so, it brought me to the question of asking these guys what their sex lives are, because I know where it's going to go like that, because the majority of modern women, they're not going to tolerate that kind of judgment. And these guys wonder why they date these gals off Tinder or wherever they meet them. And, they're 6 dates deep and there's no sex, and a lot of these guys learn real quick that you can't red pill women, and if you have to make a decision. If you're looking for a long-term relationship, that's one thing, and you need to make that an approach. But if you're looking to increase your availability of sex and your amount of sex, and you would like to have some casual sex, I think as a young man, you should be sexually experienced. So Glenn, here's my thing. If you want more casual sex, you have to come to a strong mind shift, particularly if you're RP'd and you're past your anger phase with women. Because here's the thing. You have to understand that when you're conversing with them, and you have to have an air of non-judgment, and you have to move your conversation very, very quickly, right from the get-go, to sex, starting with innuendo. And you have to make it known that you have no judgment on her past bodies. There's no judgment on her past behavior, and that you can actually, how shall I say, finesse the fact that even though she may have had a lot of bodies, you can still look past that and tell her how juicy her lips look right now. And you're just imagining how sexy it would be to give her that kiss. You have,
it's almost like you have to be able to finesse it.
If you want to have more sex.
Yeah, it's like you have to. It's like, a good way to, like, in my mind, the way I would do it, right, is like, she tells me, or I know that she's well experienced, right? I'd be like, well, you know what, you're still innocent, because until you experience me, you're still very innocent. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's kind of like you're not judging her previous experiences, even if she had 100 bodies, right? If your goal is to get more casual sex and get more experience with women sexually, you can't come off judgmental or have a criteria list as you would if you were trying to settle down with an LTR. They're two different, expectations, right?
Right. I mean, on our last episode, we talked about the beauty and why we love 304s, and we talked a little bit about body count and all of those sort of things. But if we're talking, our goal is to have sex. You need to get playful. And I understand your approach, kind of being a bigger man, that's very playful, and you get away with that approach where you can be kind of, I'm better than anything that ever came before. And that's a good thing to tell yourself. You just have to be so bold, and you have to have such social confidence, and you have to gauge the woman to make sure you don't frame that in such a way that you're actually shaming her previous lovers.
Yes. And
because when she's got that much experience, she may like some of them.
Yeah. And it's more just like, jokingly. It's never very, when I do it, it's never like, oh, I'm guaranteed you best watch. Like, I'm going to be the best thing that you've ever experienced. Like,
you'd be surprised though how many young guys do take that approach, but they have no way to back it, and it comes off judgmental.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I like to jokingly do it, you know, like, oh, you got some experience. Well, have you ever done anything with a turkey baster? Oh, you haven't? Okay, well, you know,
Yeah.
this might be a whole new experience for you then.
Yeah, you can make something ridiculous, but
yeah,
the idea is to move it into sex talk very, very quickly. You
exactly.
can even do so much, if you get any indicator of interest, you can move it right into arousal, and you're going to get shot down on some things. But here's the thing: if you don't move it to sex talk very quickly after meeting in person, or even sometimes when you're doing the FaceTime thing, because I know that's very good. I don't think text is very good for that. You can do teasing, but you have to develop some rapport. I
Mhm.
think either with video conference or actually in person. I would prefer in person.
Yeah,
As
I
a
prefer
social
in person.
individual, making some rapport, non-sexual rapport is really good. And where you can converse and you've learned enough about life that you can draw her passions out. Even if
Mhm,
she's an eccentric and has weird ass Wiccan style, which Wiccan mean witch, even if she has witchy style,
mhm.
chick crack type interests, you need to be aware of these, because that's also the beauty of knowing what chick crack is, because you can get some passion and interest from her and you learn from it. It's not that a lot of guys like to call chicks on their bullshit. In fact,
Yeah.
it's really good on these podcasts. It's red meat and serves the audience of men when we call out chick crack. Oh, astrology,
But
that
it's almost
bullshit, crystal stuff. Yeah, you girls
yeah,
all do that.
and you
Guys,
know what? They
big lesson
fail.
here. Big lesson. That's a big fucking fail in real life. Now, here's the thing. In person, and it's so especially around her, you could do it one-on-one. Absolutely. And still maintain. But in person, you would be better served if you knew about it. And you knew
Mhm.
about the crystals, and you could sit there and tell her, yes, you know that the frequency 532, that such and such certain crystal throws off, is our natural body style. You know what I just did? I
You just
spun the hamster wheel.
yep. You just made her realize she'd be like, because most likely women don't expect men to be into astrology, crystals, the new agey spiritual shit. You know,
Yep.
they most guys, you know, go, oh shit, crazy chick crack shit. You know, that's their
Right.
normal natural reaction because we see that in these podcasts as well. You know, so guys think that, oh, I just got to call these girls out on this right away, and they don't realize it's beneficial to them to actually take somewhat of an interest to learn just enough about it to know that what they're talking about. Like okay, for instance, Coco, when I first got together with her, she used to carry this fucking, you know, crystal necklace thing, and she said that it moved on its own. It would, you
Right.
know, and she'll like, you know, that's how, you know, it drew me to you because it moved towards you or something like that. And I was like, cool.
You
You know,
want to
that's
encourage it.
yeah, I was like, that's kind of a little weird, but you know what? That's pretty cool. And I'm like, you know, sitting here watching her hold this crystal and watching it swing. And I don't know whether she's doing it, you know, with her finger or whatnot. I just played into it. I'm like, well, that's a little creepy, but that's actually pretty cool at the same time, you know. And
Yeah. And there's a huge lesson in that. You didn't discount it.
no, I
And,
didn't
and
discount it.
so what I mean, I could just kind of imagine, because that sort of things happen to me. And if you guys are working on your finesse game, I'm going to give you some secrets right here that guys will kill for. You want to be able to look at her and then give her some eye contact that's very sensual and say, there's something really special about you and your vibe that has connected with me, this crystal, and how it's moved in between us. I think we got to explore that a little further. And then you're going to
Mhm.
laugh and go, which body part do you think is generating that energy? You see, I went sexual without going sexual, but her hamster wheel got spun right towards that, because that's a tingling thing of her. You've heard of the girls getting the tingles. That's spinning
Oh
the
yeah.
hamster wheel.
And you know,
So
I would use the crystal thing like when it was moving. I was like, you know, the rhythm
mhm.
that it's moving is like the same rhythm that my dick is pulsating right now, just looking at you, you know, like and you know, I'm knowing where I was and
If
who
you
I was
have the
talking
rapport,
to.
you can get
Yeah,
that
yeah,
bold. If
you
you
could get
don't,
bold.
you got to play with it more.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I mean,
It's
you
still
gotta feel
sexual
the
though.
you still
Yeah.
make it sexual. You still make the comment sexual, even if you're not that, you know, forward with it. You could be like, oh wow, well, I feel the crystal drawing me closer to you. You know, for some reason,
in fact, sometimes I would say for most guys, it's more effective if you can learn, and you can learn from a lot of books, especially female erotic, to be able to get there without being, you will be so differently viewed from every man if you can get her that aroused and talk about it without actually saying, you know, her, you know, the slang terms for their genitalia, without saying dick, cock, pussy, all that sort of stuff. You know, like when I said, your lips are so juicy. And then she giggles. She says, did you know which lips I was talking about? I didn't say anything about genitals, right? No. Nothing whatsoever. But I use the circumstance to, what am I doing by not pointing it out directly?
You're letting them point it out themselves.
I'm spinning the hamster wheel. And that little hamster, and they're spinning to keep up with it, right?
Well, you're allowing them to turn it sexual before you actually acknowledge or even take it sexually. Even though
and that is the beauty of that kind of interaction, that is playing the game. I'm not revealing the game, which a lot of guys take away from these web shows. The red meat is, I need to reveal that game and call 304 what she is. Look, she's still a human being. She's still a woman. She still has the same value as most women do as far as human life is concerned. Absolutely. Her value as an LTR is very debatable, and particularly where she's at in life, whatever her cycle's at, whatever trauma she's experienced, whatever. Here's the thing. Even women that have some body count, you're not going to get away from it. So, you know, when you bring a woman to your life longer than a few months, what she really has to add to you, and her real value beyond the sexuality, is going to be how she can add to your status. That's really it, man. And it's going to be, you know, what the heck how does she add to that? It's going to be adding to your presence, your ability to solve problems. Does she add your prosperity? Does she add your power, your ability to influence? Does she increase your net? All of those things are things that add to the woman that gives you that long-term relationship potential, and her ability to do that and couple it with intense loyalty. Let me change her religion for you. That's the big deal. We can get into that later because there's a lot of dominance things you could do to really encourage that without, you know, you're playing the game. But if you're just looking for the sex, gentlemen, you have got to get away from this judgment. You have got to be a non-judgment machine. You got to be able to sit down next to a full-blown prostitute on her vacation and not working and say, oh, you know, that's totally cool that you're high class. Like, you know what? I am non-judgmental. Good for you. That's fantastic. I bet you got some stories. Ha 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 ha. I said, well, I'd like to hear some. If you don't mind, let me buy you a drink. Whatever it is, you have to be able to do that in a non-judgmental fashion. Once that's done, what that says is that turns off a lot of her inhibitions that she would use, even as a sex worker, when she sees you as a guy that can cast judgment on her in terms of long-term mating. And guess what? Now you're going to be stuck for 3 to 5 dates with no sex because she doesn't want you to feel like she's a bad girl, and she's going to hide her sexuality from you.
You know, let me tell you a story about this time where I interviewed a high-end escort from Paris. Okay. Cool. So she was this French chick that I knew through a couple that were friends of mine in the industry, right? And they are, you know, I'm not going to say who they are, but they're up there in popularity and success. And they, you know, travel around a lot on their free time. And they met her. I think it was at what's that thing that goes out in the desert in California? The Burning Man. Yeah. Okay. So they met her at Burning Man, and they hit it off after a few shrooms and some wild orgy-ish stuff. And so I ended up meeting her one day, hanging out with all of them. And she was just nonchalantly, you know, I'm like, oh, so are you in the industry? She's like, no, I'm not in your guys' industry. I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know, cool. So what do you do? She goes, well, I'm an escort. I'm a high paid escort. And I was like, really? That's cool. Like, that's awesome. Like, how did you get into that? You know, she goes, well, I look good. I go to the gym and I get a lot of guys, you know, always trying to, you know, ask me out. And I realized that, you know, I can make this work in my benefit. I was like, sweet. I was like, as you alluded, I was like, I bet you have some crazy ass stories, right? And she's like, oh yeah. And I was like, I bet you, you know, sex kind of is different for you than it was before, right? You know, like, and we're just talking casually,
Yeah.
and she's like, yeah, you know what, I'm not turned on so much anymore by the things that I used to be turned on by guys. It's not, their physical presence so much. Yes, she said she likes an attractive guy, but it's not, all of that. And it's not all of how much money he has, or
Yep.
because she gets paid for this shit. So she's not worried about money. She got her bag, right? She goes, if a guy could carry a good conversation, if he could, she says, like, she said she was like a socio or psychopath or whatever. Basically, you gotta stimulate them to get aroused by their mind or something,
Yeah.
and it really interested me, because I was like, wow, this is actually completely different than I would expected this
You know what she was
conversation to
telling
go.
you?
Yeah.
She wants a guy that could spin her hamster wheel.
Exactly. And we were talking about for 3 or 4 hours at this event, and she kind of just stayed near me. We're in this huge kind of like dinner event, but she kind of shadowed under my wing type of thing throughout the night. And I mean, she was a really cool girl. Yes, I know she was an escort. No, she wasn't trying to game me, because she already knew I didn't need an escort. But she was cool, and we were chatting it up and having a good time. I learned more about females sexuality in that small 4-hour conversation than I did from probably my previous experiences sexually with women, just
Interesting.
because of the dialogue, and how we conversated, and how open she was, because I wasn't judgmental, like you mentioned. There was no judging. There was no like, oh, you're an escort,
Yeah.
so you're like, there was none of that. It was just normal. And it was really interesting. She pointed out some things about guys that she says that guys don't realize they do, that are some huge turnoffs.
Yeah.
And she's like, these guys could literally be the most drop dead gorgeous, wealthy guys in the room, and they can make a woman's pussy drier than a desert, just by over compensating, or over trying to establish vibrato, or trying to overdo it, not be authentic. And she said, like,
That's where a lot of guys fail when we talk about, you got to bring a conversation to sex non-judgmentally, is they want to over disclose, in
and
order
she
to
said
make an impression.
the other thing was that the way that they take the conversation to sex so vulgarly was the other thing. She's like, there was no imagination behind it. There was no
Right.
creativity. It was just
It's
like,
just
hey,
vulgar, right?
yeah, let me stick my dick in your pussy. Like, it was just so like, it wasn't like, poetic. She says, it wasn't any, thing creative behind it. She's like, if a guy told me like, hey, I wanted our souls to go, dance in the rain together, she goes, that would turn me on way more than, a guy saying like, hey, my dick's hard for you right now. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a building process. It's like climbing up ladders. They call it the escalation ladder, and there's two forms of it. There's the arousal ladder. You're just getting them aroused, and then there's that sexual escalation beyond that. But just in conversation, moving it to sex, that's where a lot of guys fail. They do that, and then they express it with their faces very unusually. I could kind of show you here where there's an issue is guys will open their eyes to see the top whites to express emotion. Guys don't do that. If you hold that too long, it's creepy as fuck. And a lot of guys don't even know that because they haven't been taught how to behave properly, And so there's things you got to do like that, or they over keynote. And here's the thing, you gotta almost, this is going to sound completely contradictory, but if you've been in a lot of environments, or let's say lifestyle environments, or around, say even the sex industry, say you go to the AVNs or any of those folks outside of those events, you almost got to not give a single F if you have sex with them. Yet you almost have to project that, yeah, I would, and I don't judge you for it. Of course I would. It's no big deal to me. I could care less one way or the other. If we got time, that's fine. Yeah. And it's kind of like that. And once you have that, then you can kind of guide and play chess with them. And if you want sex, it's not just people in the lifestyle or the environment. It's every woman.
Actually, I think every guy needs to have that approach. period. And regardless of the lifestyle or the adult industry or whatever,
if you want sex,
if you really want sex, you have to approach it with the mindset that you actually really don't want sex.
you need to be non-judgmental about it.
Yeah, you want sex less than you wanting her to desire you sexually. You want her to desire you more than you actually want the act.
And so how do you do that is actually, that's an interesting dilemma that guys face when they want more sex, because they become desperate, thirsty, and they don't know any different. And they hear guys like us talk about dirty talk or things like that. And boy, they just want to dive in, which bless their heart, they should. They're going to take a lot of L's, but the non-judgmental thing is a big deal. Couple that with some finesse and conversation. The way most men will approach it when they're very thirsty is to be nice.
Yep.
Even to the 304s, it's like, oh yes, dear, I'm going to simp. Oh, you need this? Let me open the door for you. Oh, it's okay. Let me take care of it. You know, you'll inconvenience yourself as a man to please her. They see that as weakness, and you're on that borderline friend zone, maybe boyfriend, if you know he shows a little bit more strength later on as he's trying to be nice to me.
Also, they actually see that as you setting them up for sexual favor in exchange. Okay, because women women do it, because a lot of women I have come across, anytime like you do something what they would consider generous or nice to them, for them, just because women tend to be like, oh, wait a minute, does he want something in return from me? Like, is he doing this because
tit for tat? Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, there's that, but there's also the fact that when you're extra nice, that hamster wheel is going to come to the conclusion that, holy crap, if he knows my background and he knows I can't reveal any of this, and he might be worth something, he might not, but now I've got to play this different game.
And whereas, I had an issue with that, because there's times where I would do what is considered overly nice for somebody, but it's not overly nice in my opinion. It's just the right thing to do, and I remember helping this one lady out, right? And she was attractive, and but it had nothing to do with that. She had kids, and her grocery bag just dropped, right? And all her shit went all over the fucking parking lot, and I picked all that shit up for her, loaded it in her car while she's, dealing with her kid. And she's like, oh, you don't have to do that. I was like, no, that's cool. I got you, and she's like, no, really, I can't accept that, with, I don't have nothing to give you. I'm like, no, I'm just doing it just to do it. Like, I want to help you out. I have no expectations, just here, let me help you. And women are not used to that. It's really crazy that you would think that they would be able to receive, things and kindness from men, without feeling like there's this expectation. But women nowadays are not really comfortable receiving gestures of kindness or good things like from men, because men tend to use those actions as a means to try to get their foot in the door to kind of get some sympathy sex. You know what I mean? So
there is that sort of a beta game out there for sure.
Yeah, and I think that women are more turned on to that, or more aware of that, than they are other things.
Possibly. I mean, for sure, if you really want to increase, your sexual experience, you need to just really adopt that complete, free from judgment, even if you are judging silently, because we all judge. Keep that shit to yourself. I mean, that's what you need to do. And you need to kind of get over the whole body count thing, and be, especially if you're out for the sex. If it's recreational use only, that shouldn't exist for you.
Now, here's a question about that. Here's a question about that. Here, I got a question for you. So, yeah, let's say they have the mindset of like, I don't give a fuck what she did before. I'm out here, for some casual recreational fun.
It's here right now.
It's here right now. Let's enjoy it. And they do. And they kind of end up making like a regular booty call type of thing or whatever. And let's say at this point he's giving off the impression that he doesn't care about her wildness, right? But when she ends up wanting maybe to take it to a different level, You know,
you should always be pushing for that, especially if you're a dom.
Yeah, but if the girl ends up wanting to make it more exclusive,
yeah,
you know, between the two of you,
that's a beautiful thing.
But you have been approaching this with the mindset of you don't give a fuck about her past. You know that she's a hoe, but
That's
you're
the
not.
best possible outcome, Glenn.
Oh, I know, but I'm getting to the question, and the guy now with the girl, you know, wanting to, you know, make it exclusive. He goes, "Oh no, I can't do that with you. You're not that kind of girl. Like, come on now, you're not the settle down type of girl. Come on, you the fun, you know, freaky girl that that we just fuck around. We don't try to settle down with you."
You could use that approach. I wouldn't, but that's okay.
But no, I'm saying those guys that end up having that, how do they adapt to that advancement from her? Because you know she's going to eventually want more from you.
Make sure you watch part 2 on the Trident. Casual sex or LTR.